Good evening, and welcome. However you found your way here tonight, and wherever in the world you are, I am so glad that you've come. Perhaps you're already in bed, with the blankets pulled up warm and the light turned low. Perhaps you're resting at the end of a long, tiring day, or lying awake in the quiet middle of the night while the world outside has gone to sleep. Wherever you are, there is nothing you need to do now. You don't have to concentrate or keep up or remember a single word. You need only settle back, let your body grow heavy and still, and let a slow, gentle voice keep you company as you drift off. Before we begin, I'd love to know one small thing. Which corner of the world are you listening from tonight? If you feel like it, leave a few words below to say hello and tell us where you are. There's something lovely in the thought of so many people all over the earth settling down to rest beneath the same night sky. And if these calm little journeys help you find some peace at the end of the day, a quiet like and a tap of subscribe help this small channel more than you might guess. It costs you nothing. It takes only a moment, and it truly means the world. So thank you for being here, whether this is your first night or one of many. Now, let me tell you where we are going to wander this evening. Tonight, we are going to take a slow and gentle journey through the place we call home. Not the house you're lying in, and not even the world beneath you, but the vast and beautiful island of stars that holds our whole world within it. Tonight, we are going to explore the Milky Way, our own galaxy, the great spinning wheel of hundreds of billions of suns, of glowing clouds and dark drifting dust, that our little sun and our little Earth, and every single person who has ever lived, has always belonged to. We'll find out what it truly is, and what shape it takes, and how astonishingly large it is. We'll drift out to its quiet edges and in toward its blazing heart, and we'll come to understand, softly and without any hurry, our own small and rather wonderful place within it. There is a curious thing about the Milky Way, and I think it is worth saying right at the start. It is the one place in all the universe that we can never step outside of to look back upon. We have sent our cameras to the moon and to the far planets, and turned our great telescopes toward galaxies unimaginably far away, and photographed them whole in all their spiraling beauty. But our own galaxy, our own home, is the one thing we cannot photograph from the outside, because we are inside it, and we cannot leave. It is a little like trying to picture the outside of your own house while being forever unable to step out of a single room within it. And yet, patiently, cleverly, over long years of watching and measuring, we have managed to work out what our home must look like all the same. And that is part of the gentle story we'll follow tonight. I promise there will be nothing difficult here. There is no science to study, no long and tangled words to remember, and there is certainly no test waiting at the end. If anything, I hope this feels less like a lesson and more like being told a slow and wondering bedtime story about the great glowing wheel of stars that we are all always quietly turning within. And if you happen to drift off to sleep somewhere along the way, long before we reach the end, please do not feel that you have missed a thing. That is exactly what this is here for. It would be the loveliest possible way to spend the night. So make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can. Sink a little deeper into the pillow. Let your shoulders fall, and close your eyes whenever they feel ready to close. Take one slow, easy breath in, and let it slowly out. And let us begin by stepping outside on a clear, dark night and simply looking up. Imagine that you have wandered far away from the glow of any town, out into the deep countryside, or high into the mountains, or to the middle of some wide and empty land where no streetlight has ever shone. It is a clear night with no moon, and the air is cool and still. You tilt your head back and look up, and there, stretched right across the whole dome of the sky, from one edge of the horizon to the other, you see it, a soft, pale, glowing band of light, faint and misty, like a delicate veil of silver smoke draped across the darkness. It is not made of clouds. It does not drift or change. It simply hangs there, quiet and luminous, arching over the whole world. This gentle river of light is the Milky Way, or rather, it is our view of the Milky Way, the only view we ever get from our small place within it. And for almost the whole of human history, no one had any idea what it truly was. Every people, in every corner of the earth, saw this glowing band above them and wondered at it, and gave it names and stories of their own. Some looked at that soft pale stripe and saw a river flowing across the heavens. Some saw a great road or a path made of light. Some saw spilled milk poured across the dark. And it is from that very old idea of a pale milky band spilled across the sky that our own name for it comes down to us. The Milky Way, a river of milk, a road of light, poured across the night. But what is it, really? For thousands of years, that soft glow kept it secret. And then, a little over 400 years ago, someone turned one of the very first telescopes up toward that pale band of light and made a quiet, astonishing discovery. That misty glow was not a cloud or a vapor or spilled milk at all. It was stars, countless stars. So many stars, packed so densely and lying so unimaginably far away that our eyes could not tell them apart. They blurred and blended together into a single soft smear of light, the way the individual lights of a distant city, seen from very far off, melt into one gentle glow on the horizon. What looked like a river of milk was really a river of suns, more suns than anyone had ever dreamed could exist. And that, right there, was the first great clue to what our galaxy is and to why we see it the way we do. Because here is the heart of it. We do not see the Milky Way as a band across the sky, because it happens to be shaped like a band. We see it as a band because of where we are standing. Our galaxy, as we shall come to understand tonight, is shaped rather like a vast, flat disk, a great thin plate of stars, far wider than it is thick. And our own sun sits inside that disk, roughly within its flat plane, like a single speck of dust caught in the middle of an enormous, gently spinning record. So when we look out along the flat plane of the disk, in either direction, we are looking through the long way of it, through layer upon layer upon layer of distant stars, and we see them all piled up together into that thick glowing band. But when we look up out of the disk, or down out of it, toward where it is thin, we are looking the short way, out of the plate and into the emptiness beyond, and we see only a scattering of nearer stars against the dark. So that faint river of light arching over your head on a clear night is not something separate from you, hanging far away. It is the rest of your own home, seen edge on from the inside. When you gaze at the Milky Way, you are looking down the long, flat length of the very galaxy you live within. You are inside the picture, looking along it. And every one of those countless blurred and blended points of light is a sun, very much like our own, many of them, quite possibly, with their own small worlds turning around them, and who knows what beneath their skies. It is a humbling and a beautiful thing to stand beneath that soft glowing band and to understand at last that you are not looking up at your home from below. You are standing right in the middle of it. And here is a quiet sadness worth a gentle mention, though I do not want it to trouble you at all. Most people alive in the world today have never truly seen this river of light. For as our towns and cities have grown and filled the night with their own electric glow, that light has spilled upward into the sky and washed the faint band of the Milky Way away, drowning it out beneath the brightness of our street lamps. In a great many of the places where people now live, you could look up on the very clearest night of the whole year and never once know that the Milky Way was there above you at all. It takes a real journey now, out to some genuinely dark and lonely place, far from any town, to see the thing that every single one of our ancestors, in every age before our own, simply saw above them on every clear night of their lives. So if you have ever stood beneath a truly dark sky and watched that soft glowing band arching over you in its full quiet glory, then hold on to the memory of it, for it is one of the oldest and most beautiful sights that human eyes have ever known. And if you never yet have, then perhaps one night, somewhere far from the lights, you will. It is well worth the journey. Tonight, gently and slowly, we are going to come to know that home. We'll learn its shape and its size and the different parts that make it up. We'll travel out toward its faint and lonely edges and inward toward its bright and crowded heart. But before we can wander through our galaxy, we ought first to understand what a galaxy actually is. So let us begin there softly, with that simplest and grandest of questions. What is a galaxy? At its very simplest, a galaxy is an enormous gathering of stars, all held together, and all drifting through space together, bound by the gentle and endless pull of gravity. That is really the whole of it. Where a single star, like our sun, is one lonely furnace of light, a galaxy is a vast, gravity-bound family of them, millions or billions or even hundreds of billions of stars, all traveling together through the dark as one great whole, like an island of light adrift in a boundless, empty sea. And our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is a large and handsome one. The number of stars it holds is so great that it is almost meaningless to say it. And yet, let us say it anyway, gently, just to sit with the scale of the thing. Our galaxy contains somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. We cannot count them exactly. There are far too many, and many of them are far too faint and far too distant for us ever to see, so we can only estimate. But even the smallest guess, 100 billion, is a number beyond anything the mind can truly picture. If you tried to count them out loud, one star every second, without ever pausing to eat or sleep, it would take you longer than the entire history of the human species to reach the end. And that is only the stars in this one single galaxy, our own. Now, hold on to that number, because it changes how you see everything. Our sun, the great and blazing star that gives us all our light and warmth, the star that our whole world depends upon utterly, the star that has seemed to every generation of people the very center and source of all things. Our sun is simply one of those hundreds of billions, one ordinary star among a vast and countless multitude. It is not near the center of the galaxy. It is not especially large or bright or unusual. If some traveler in a far-off part of the Milky Way were to look toward us, our sun would not even be visible to them as a single point of light. It would be lost entirely, blended into that same soft glowing band that we ourselves look up at. Our mighty sun, the ruler of our whole sky, is, from the scale of the galaxy, no more than one tiny grain of sand on a truly enormous beach. And these hundreds of billions of stars are not scattered about at random, drifting every which way. They are held together, and they move together in a vast and orderly way, all bound by gravity. Gravity, you'll remember, is that same quiet, patient force that holds you gently in your bed, that keeps your feet upon the ground, that keeps the earth circling the sun. It is a force that reaches across any distance, and every object in the universe feels it, pulling it toward every other. And across the unimaginable spaces of a galaxy, it is gravity that does the great work of holding everything together, every star tugging upon every other, the whole immense family bound into a single shape, turning slowly together through the emptiness, held as one. It is worth pausing too on just how much empty space lies between all those stars. When we look up at that thick glowing band and see the stars piled so densely together, it is easy to imagine the galaxy as a crowded place, all packed and jammed with suns. But it is very nearly the opposite. The stars only look crowded because they are so far away, and there are so very many of them behind one another. In truth, the distances between the stars are so vast that a galaxy is mostly emptiness. If you were to shrink our sun down to the size of a single grain of sand, the very nearest other star would be another grain of sand, and it would lie many miles away, with nothing at all in between but empty dark. So a galaxy is not a dense and jostling crowd. It is a scattering of tiny, brilliant grains, separated by gulfs of quiet emptiness so wide that even light, the fastest thing there is, takes years and years to cross the smallest of them. And yet, held together by gravity across all that emptiness, they form one thing, one whole, one great slow-turning island of light. And we live upon a tiny world, circling one small grain, somewhere within it. So now, let us ask the next gentle question. If we could somehow rise up out of the galaxy and turn and look back upon our home, what shape would we see? If you could somehow lift yourself up, far, far out of the galaxy, out beyond its farthest stars, and then turn around to look back at the whole of it at once, you would see something breathtakingly beautiful. You would see a vast, glowing, gently spinning wheel of light, a great flat disk of hundreds of billions of stars, turning slowly in the dark, and winding out from its bright center. You would see immense, sweeping, curving arms, graceful spiral arms, like the arms of a slowly turning pinwheel, or the curl of cream stirred once through a cup of dark coffee, traced out in glowing starlight. Our galaxy is what we call a spiral galaxy, and it is, by any measure, one of the loveliest kinds of thing that exists anywhere in all of creation. Let me paint the shape of it for you, softly, piece by piece, so you can hold the whole of it in your mind as you rest. First, there is the disk. This is the great, broad, flattened plate of the galaxy, the wide, thin sheet in which most of its bright stars live, and in which our own sun quietly sits. It is enormously wide, and, compared to its width, really rather thin, like an immense pancake, or a vast dinner plate, spun out of stars and light. It is within this flat disk that the beautiful spiral arms are traced, those grand curving lanes where the youngest and brightest stars are born and blaze. Then, at the very center of the disk, there is the bulge. Imagine the yolk sitting at the middle of a fried egg, with the flat, white spreading out all around it. The bulge is a little like that. It is a great, rounded, swollen crowd of stars, gathered thickly at the heart of the galaxy, bulging out above and below the flat plane of the disk. The stars there are packed far more densely than they are out where we live, and most of them are very old. And running right through the middle of that central bulge, our galaxy has a further feature, a great straight bar of stars, crossing through the center, from which the spiral arms wind away at either end. Because of this, we call the Milky Way not just a spiral galaxy, but a barred spiral, a spinning disk with a bar of stars across its heart, and arms curling out from the ends of the bar. And then, surrounding the whole of it, the disk, the arms, the bulge, and the bar, there is a vast, faint, spherical cloud that we call the halo. The halo is like a great dim sphere wrapped all around the bright disk, far larger than the disk itself, but very thinly scattered with stars. It holds some of the very oldest stars in the entire galaxy, drifting quietly out there in the dark, far above and below the crowded plain. And as we shall see much later tonight, the halo holds other, stranger things too, including a great deal of something invisible, something we still do not fully understand, but we'll come to that gently in its own time. So that is the shape of our home, a broad flat disk of stars, threaded through with graceful spiral arms, a swollen, glowing bulge of old stars at its center, crossed by a great bar, and a vast dim halo wrapped around it all. It is an elegant and beautiful design, and it is the shape of countless other galaxies we can see out in the distance, photographed whole and turning in the deep dark. But now, perhaps you are wondering the very thing I wondered when I first learned all this. If we can never leave our galaxy and can never photograph it from the outside, if we are forever stuck within a single one of its hundreds of billions of stars, then how on earth do we know all this? How do we know it is a disk with spiral arms and a bar and a halo when we have never once seen it from without? It is a fair and a good question, and the answer is a quiet testament to human patience and cleverness. We have worked it out over long years from the inside. We have carefully measured the distances to countless stars around us, building up, little by little, a three-dimensional map of where they all lie, and slowly the flat disk shape emerged from that map. We have watched how the glowing band of the Milky Way is thicker and brighter in one direction of the sky, toward the center, and thinner elsewhere, which tells us where the crowded heart must lie. We have traced the clouds of gas and the young bright stars that mark out the spiral arms. And perhaps most tellingly of all, we have looked out at all those other spiral galaxies so far away and seen their shape plainly from the outside, and recognized in them the very same features we measure around ourselves. And so, like someone who has never seen the outside of their own house, but who has carefully paced out every room within and compared it to the houses of their neighbors, we have come to know the shape of our home, which brings us gently to the next great question. Just how big is it? To speak of the size of the Milky Way, We first need a way of measuring distances so vast that our ordinary miles and kilometers become useless. If I tried to tell you the width of the galaxy in miles, the number would be so enormous, so heaped with zeros, that it would mean nothing at all. It would simply slide off the mind. So astronomers use a different and rather beautiful measuring stick, one built not out of distance, but out of the speed of light. And it is worth taking a slow moment to understand it, because it is one of the loveliest ideas in all of stargazing. Light is the fastest thing there is. Nothing in all the universe travels faster. A beam of light is so swift that, in a single second, it could race around the entire Earth very nearly 8 times over. In 1 second. It is a speed utterly beyond anything in our experience. And yet, the distances between the stars are so staggeringly vast that even light, moving at that impossible pace, takes years and years to cross them. And so, astronomers use, as their measuring stick, the distance that light travels in 1 whole year. We call that distance a light year. It is not a measure of time, though it sounds like one. It is a measure of distance, the enormous distance a beam of light covers in the course of a year, flying at its incredible speed the entire time, never once slowing or resting. A single light year is a distance so great it would take a beam of light a full year to travel it. Hold that in your mind softly, and let us now measure our galaxy with it. The Milky Way, the great flat disk of it, the part where most of the stars live, is somewhere around 100,000 light years across. Let us sit with that for a moment. It means that if a beam of light set out from one edge of our galaxy, racing at that unthinkable speed, fast enough to circle the whole Earth 8 times in a heartbeat, it would take that beam of light 100,000 years to cross to the other side. 100,000 years just to cross our own home, at the fastest speed that anything can possibly go. When our earliest ancestors were first learning to make fire, a beam of light setting out then from one side of the galaxy would still, even now, be only about halfway across. That is the width of the Milky Way. That is the size of the island we live upon. And yet, for all that enormous width, the disk is really rather thin. Thin, at least, compared to how wide it is. Where the disk stretches 100,000 light years across, it is only around 1,000 light years thick, there in the flat plain where most of the stars lie. Now, 1,000 light years is still an unimaginable distance in its own right. But set against a width of 100,000, it is slender indeed. If you were to shrink our whole galaxy down to the width of a large dinner plate, it would be thinner in proportion than that plate is, more like a broad, flat crepe than a solid disk. It really is a vast, wide, delicate sheet of stars, far broader than it is deep. It can help to try one more picture, just to feel how small we truly are within all of this. Imagine that we could shrink the entire Milky Way down, the whole 100,000 light-year sweep of it, until it was small enough to fit neatly across a single large city, only some tens of miles from one edge to the other. On that shrunken scale, our whole solar system, our sun, and every one of its planets together, the entire realm that we could ever even dream of traveling across, would be smaller than a single grain of sand. And our Earth, our whole world, with all its oceans and mountains and forests, and every person who has ever lived upon it, would be so small that you could not see it at all, not with the sharpest eye, not even under a microscope. That is our true size within the galaxy, a speck far too small to see upon a single grain of sand, lost somewhere in a city of stars. And yet, And this is the part I find most wonderful of all. That speck too small to see is nonetheless able to lie in the dark and look up, and wonder, and slowly, patiently, work out the shape and the size of the entire vast city it is lost within. There is something quietly magnificent in that, and this is exactly why, as we said before, we see the Milky Way as a thin, bright band across our sky, because we are looking out along the flat, wide plane of that great thin sheet. It can help, I think, to try to picture the numbers of it all together, though gently, with no need to hold on to them. 100 billion stars or more, spread across a flat disk 100,000 light-years wide and 1,000 light-years thick, all turning slowly together through the emptiness. The distances are so far beyond anything we will ever touch or travel that they cannot really be felt, only wondered at. We could never journey across our galaxy, not in a human lifetime, not in 1,000 lifetimes, not with the fastest ships we could ever dream of building. If we sent out the swiftest spacecraft we have ever made toward the very nearest star beyond our own, it would take that craft not years but tens of thousands of years simply to arrive at the closest neighbor. And that nearest star is right on our own doorstep, by the measure of the galaxy. To cross the whole Milky Way would take longer than anything the human mind can meaningfully hold. And so we do not cross it. We simply live within it, upon our small, warm world, and look out at it and wonder. But where within it do we live? Out of all that vast 100,000 light-year sweep of stars, where does our own small sun sit? Let us go there now, gently, and find our place upon the great wheel. So where, in all that vastness, is home? Where does our sun sit upon the great turning disk of the Milky Way? Well, we do not live at the center of our galaxy, not even close. For a very long time, people naturally assumed that we must be somewhere near the middle of things. It is a very human assumption that we should be at the center, but it turned out to be quite wrong. Our sun lies far out from the crowded heart of the galaxy, well over halfway toward the edge of the disk, out in the calmer, quieter, more thinly scattered suburbs. To put a gentle number on it, our sun sits roughly 26,000 light-years from the center of the Milky Way, which means that even the light from the great central heart of our own galaxy, racing toward us at its impossible speed, takes some 26,000 years to reach us. The glow at the center of the Milky Way that we might see tonight set out toward us long before the first cities were ever built. And I find something quietly comforting in where we live. Out here, in our part of the galaxy, the stars are relatively spread out and far apart. It is peaceful, as galaxies go. In toward the center, in that crowded bulge, the stars are packed together far more thickly, and there are all manner of more violent and energetic things going on. But out here in the quiet suburbs, where we live, it is calm. Our sun drifts along through a fairly gentle and unremarkable neighborhood, with plenty of empty space around it. And this calm may well be part of why life has had the long, undisturbed stretches of time it needed to arise and to flourish upon our world. We live in a quiet corner of a vast city of stars, not out on the lonely far edges, and not in the busy, crowded, dangerous heart, but somewhere peaceful in between. Our sun sits within one of the galaxy's structures, not upon one of the great major spiral arms themselves, as it happens, but within a smaller feature, a kind of minor spur or bridge of stars that lies between two of the larger arms. It is sometimes called the Orion spur or the local arm, this smaller lane of stars that we happen to inhabit. But we need not worry over the names of things tonight. What matters is simply the feeling of it, that our sun and our earth and all of us, ride along together in a modest little stream of stars, out in the pleasant middle reaches of the disk, neither at the center nor the edge. And all around our sun, filling the sky we see each night, are our stellar neighbors, the nearer stars, the ones close enough that we can pick them out as individual points of light, rather than as part of that blurred and distant band. When you look up and see the familiar patterns of the night sky, the shapes that people have named and told stories about for thousands of years, you are seeing our local neighborhood, the handful of nearer stars that happen to lie close enough to us to shine out clearly on their own. They feel, when we look up at them, as though they are the sky, but they are only the nearest few, a tiny local cluster of our closest companions, set against the vast blurred glow of all the countless millions more that lie behind them, too far away to separate. Even the very nearest star to our own sun, our closest stellar neighbor of all, lies more than 4 light years away, which is to say, its light takes over 4 years to reach us, and it is by far the closest thing to us in all the galaxy beyond the sun itself. The night sky, in other words, is our own small doorstep, and beyond that doorstep stretches the whole immense city of the Milky Way. But here is something you would never guess, just from looking up. That whole vast wheel of stars, the disk, the arms, the bulge, our own sun, and everything else, is not sitting still. It is turning. All of it, slowly and majestically, is spinning through the dark, and we are turning with it, right now, faster than you could ever imagine, without feeling the slightest thing. Let us drift on to that next and gentlest of wonders. Here is a thing that is happening to you at this very moment, as you lie there, so perfectly still and calm. You are moving. You are, in fact, being carried through space at a truly staggering speed, and you cannot feel it in the least. For the whole great disk of the Milky Way is slowly, endlessly turning, like an immense wheel rotating in the dark, and our sun, and our earth, and you upon it, are all being carried around with it, swept along in a vast and stately circle around the distant center of the galaxy. And the speed of it is almost beyond belief. As our sun is carried around the center of the Milky Way, it is moving at something like 500,000 miles in every single hour. Not 500,000 miles a day or a year, 500,000 miles an hour. It is a speed so great that it makes the fastest rocket we have ever launched seem to be standing perfectly still. At this very instant, as you rest quietly in the dark, you are being flung around the heart of the galaxy at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, and you feel nothing at all. No wind, no rush, no motion whatsoever. Everything around you, the walls, the room, the whole earth, the very air, is moving along with you, all together, at exactly the same tremendous speed. And so there is nothing to feel. It is the same reason that, when you sit in a smoothly moving train or a high-flying aircraft, you can pour a drink or fall asleep as though you were sitting perfectly still. We are all together, gliding around the galaxy at an impossible pace, in perfect, silent, unfelt calm. And yet, for all that dizzying speed, the galaxy is so unimaginably vast that a single turn takes an almost incomprehensible span of time. Even racing along at 500,000 miles an hour, our sun takes somewhere around 230 million years to complete just one full circuit around the center of the Milky Way, to travel once around the Great Wheel and return to where it began. Astronomers sometimes call this span of time a galactic year, the length of one full orbit of our sun around the galaxy. And 230 million years is such a vast stretch of time that it puts our whole small human story into the gentlest of perspectives. The last time our sun was at this same point in its long orbit around the galaxy, the last time a galactic year began, the very first dinosaurs were only just beginning to appear upon the Earth. Every single thing that has happened in the whole long history of life as we know it, every dinosaur that ever walked, every forest that ever grew, every creature that ever lived and died, the whole rise of humankind, all of recorded history, all of it has unfolded in the time it has taken our sun to travel just once, and not even quite once around the center of our galaxy. There is something wonderfully calming in that thought, I find, that we are riding, all of us, upon a great slow wheel that turns so grandly and so patiently that a single one of its turns swallows up the entire age of the dinosaurs and everything since. It makes our own worries feel very small and very soft. Whatever troubles the day may have held, whatever anxieties are turning over in your mind as you lie there, the great wheel does not notice them and does not hurry for them. It simply turns, as it has turned for billions of years, carrying us gently along at 500,000 miles an hour, through the quiet and the dark. And it asks nothing of us at all but that we hold on and rest and enjoy the ride. And it is not only the turning of the great wheel that carries us. Our whole galaxy is itself drifting through space, tugged gently along by the gravity of its neighbors, so that even the vast wheel we ride upon is, as a whole, being carried onward through the wider dark. So there are motions upon motions, all layered softly together, our Earth turning upon itself as it circles the sun sweeping in its great slow orbit around the center of the galaxy, and the whole galaxy drifting on through the cosmos among its neighbors. We are riding upon all of these at once, this very moment, layer upon layer of vast and silent motion, and we feel not the faintest whisper of any of it. We simply lie here, warm and still, while the great machinery of the heavens carries us gently onward through the dark, exactly as it has done every moment since long before we were born, and exactly as it will go on doing long after we are gone. There is a deep and gentle peace to be found in that, I think, in being carried so safely and so silently, and having nothing at all that we need to do but rest. Now, we have spoken of the great spiral arms winding out through the disk, and I have promised to tell you more about them, about what they truly are, and about the wonderful things that happen within them. So let us drift inward now, from our quiet spot in the suburbs, and take a gentle look at those grand and glowing arms of stars. The spiral arms are, without doubt, the most beautiful feature of our galaxy, and of the countless other spiral galaxies like it. They are those grand, sweeping, luminous lanes that wind outward from the center, curving gracefully around and around, tracing their glowing spirals across the whole broad disk. When you see a photograph of a distant spiral galaxy, blazing and turning in the dark, it is the arms that give it all its beauty. Those bright, curling ribbons of light, threaded with rosy clouds and sparkling with brilliant stars. And our own Milky Way has arms just like these. So what are they really? What makes an arm an arm? Here is a thing that surprises many people when they first hear it. The spiral arms are not solid, fixed structures like the spokes of a wheel, made always of the very same stars. It is not that some stars belong permanently to the arms and others to the gaps between. In fact, our sun, and most of the stars in the disk, drift in and out of the spiral arms over the long ages of their orbits, passing through them and out the other side. The arms are something more subtle and more interesting than fixed lanes of stars. They are more like regions, great sweeping regions where things are, for the moment, more crowded and more active than elsewhere. And the loveliest way I know to picture what an arm truly is to think of something you may well have sat in yourself, on a busy road, a traffic jam. Imagine a long highway, at night, with cars flowing along it. And imagine that, somewhere along that highway, there is a slow patch. Perhaps a place where the cars bunch up and crowd together and creep along more slowly for a while, before spreading out and speeding up again on the far side. If you were looking down from high above, you would see that slow, crowded patch as a denser clump of cars and brighter lights on the road. And here is the key thing. The individual cars are always moving through that jam. A car enters the back of it, crawls slowly through the crowded part, and eventually emerges out the front and speeds away, while new cars keep arriving at the back to take its place. So the jam itself, the crowded region, can stay in roughly the same place on the road and hold its shape, even though the actual cars within it are always changing, always flowing through. A spiral arm is rather like that great slow traffic jam, but made of stars and gas, wound around a galaxy. It is a region where the material of the disk, the stars, and especially the great clouds of gas and dust, becomes bunched up and crowded together, moving a little more slowly for a while as it passes through. Stars drift into the arm from behind, linger in the crowd for a time, and eventually drift out the front, while others arrive to take their place. The arm itself, the crowded lane, holds its graceful spiral shape across the ages, even as the individual stars are forever flowing through it. It is a pattern, a wave of crowding, sweeping slowly around the great wheel. And because the gas and dust get squeezed and crowded together as they pass through this cosmic traffic jam, something wonderful happens there. That squeezing of the gas is exactly what triggers the birth of new stars. All along the spiral arms, in those crowded regions where the clouds are pressed together, fresh new stars are constantly being born, lighting up for the first time. And the very brightest and most massive of these newborn stars burn with a fierce, brilliant, blue-white light. And they do not live very long before they die, which means they never have time to drift far from the arm where they were born. And so the arms are lined and studded with these brilliant, short-lived, blue-white young stars, blazing away right where they formed, tracing out the spiral in dazzling light. This is why the arms shine so much more brightly than the spaces between them. Not because there are so many more stars there in total, but because that is where the brilliant young ones are being born, all along those great glowing lanes. The spiral arms are, in a sense, the nurseries of the galaxy, the places where new suns are forever coming into being, lighting up the wheel with the fresh bright light of newborn stars. So when you look up at the Milky Way and see it glowing more richly and thickly in certain directions, you are, in part, looking toward its arms, those grand curving lanes of crowded gas and newborn light, winding their slow way around our home. But all these arms, and all the stars of the disk, wind inward toward a single place, the great, crowded, blazing heart of the galaxy. And it is time now to journey gently in toward that heart and to see what lies at the very center of the Milky Way. Let us travel now, slowly and gently, in toward the center of the galaxy, inward from our quiet home in the suburbs, in through the increasingly crowded lanes of stars, all the way to the great blazing heart of the Milky Way. And as we go inward, the character of the galaxy changes around us. The stars grow more and more densely packed. Where we live, the stars are spread far and thin, with vast gulfs of empty dark between them. But in toward the center, they crowd closer and closer together, thicker and thicker, until, at the very heart, they are packed together far more densely than anywhere out where we live. If you lived upon a world near the center of the galaxy, your night sky would blaze with countless brilliant stars, far more than we ever see, a sky never truly dark, glittering thickly from horizon to horizon. There is a reason, too, that we cannot simply look up and see this bright, crowded heart of our galaxy blazing in our own night sky, as brilliant as it truly is. Between us and the center lie many thousands of light years of those same drifting clouds of gas and dust. And that dust, thin as it is in any one place, is spread so thickly across such an enormous distance that it blocks and soaks up the ordinary light of the center almost completely, like a bank of fog hiding a great city that lies just beyond it. If it were not for all that dust standing in the way, the heart of the Milky Way would shine in our sky as a vast glowing region, far brighter than anything else in all the night. But the dust veils it softly from our ordinary sight. And so, to peer through that veil and study what lies at the center, astronomers have learned to use other kinds of light, beyond the light our own eyes can see, kinds of light that slip through the dust far more easily and quietly reveal the blazing, crowded heart that hides behind it. It is one more small example of the patient cleverness by which we have come to know our home, even those parts of it that we can never directly see. At the center lies the bulge, that great rounded swelling of stars we spoke of earlier, the yolk at the heart of the galactic egg. It is a vast, dense, glowing crowd of mostly very old stars, gathered thickly around the middle of the galaxy. And running through it, that great bar of stars crosses the center, with the spiral arms winding away from its two ends. But if we press on inward, in through the crowded bulge, all the way to the very center point of the galaxy, the exact middle of the whole great wheel, the point about which all those hundreds of billions of stars are turning, we find something truly extraordinary waiting there. Something that, for most of human history, no one even suspected. At the very center of the Milky Way, there sits a black hole, and not a small one, an utterly enormous one. Now, we have touched on black holes a little already, but let us hold the idea again, gently, for it is a strange one. A black hole is a place where matter has been crushed together so incredibly tightly, and where gravity has therefore become so overwhelmingly strong that nothing which comes too close can ever escape it again. Not a stone, not a beam of light, nothing at all. It is a region of such total and absolute gravity that it is perfectly black and closed off from the rest of the universe. And the one that sits at the center of our galaxy is what we call a supermassive black hole, a black hole of truly staggering size. It contains as much material, as much sheer mass, as about 4 million of our suns, all gathered together into that single central point. 4 million suns, crushed into one dark heart, sitting silently at the very middle of the Milky Way. It has a name, this great dark heart of ours. Astronomers call it Sagittarius A star, a rather technical little name, drawn from the direction of the sky in which it lies. But we need not dwell on the name. What matters is the wonder of the thing, that our whole vast galaxy, all those hundreds of billions of stars, turn slowly around a single, silent, supermassive black hole at its center, holding as much mass as 4 million suns. And we know it is there, even though we cannot see the black hole itself, for by its very nature, no light escapes it. We know it is there because we have watched, over many years, the handful of stars that orbit very close around that central point, and we have seen them whipping around it at tremendous speeds, flung around in tight, fast loops by the pull of something enormous and invisible at the center. By carefully tracking the paths of those circling stars, astronomers were able to work out the mass of the unseen thing they orbit, and found it to be that great crushing weight of 4 million suns, packed into a space no larger than our own little solar system. There could be no ordinary object so heavy and yet so small and so dark. It could only be a supermassive black hole. And more recently still, by joining together telescopes from all around the world into one great eye, astronomers even managed to capture an actual image of the glowing ring of hot material swirling right around the edge of it, a faint, fiery circle of light, with the perfect darkness of the black hole itself sitting silently at its center. To hold a picture of the very heart of our own galaxy is a quiet triumph of patience and cleverness, and a rather beautiful thing to think of as you rest. I do not want you to feel any unease at this, lying there in the dark. A supermassive black hole sounds like a frightening thing, but ours sits calmly and quietly at the center of the galaxy, some 26,000 light years away from us, an almost unimaginable distance, far too far ever to trouble us in the slightest. It is not a drain or a whirlpool, pulling everything in. The stars of the galaxy, ours included, simply orbit peacefully around it, held in their great slow circles, exactly as the Earth peacefully orbits the Sun. It is simply the heavy, quiet anchor at the heart of our home, around which the whole great wheel gently turns. So let us leave the bright and crowded center now, and drift back outward, out past the disk, past the arms, out into the vast, dim, quiet region that wraps around the whole of our galaxy, where some of its oldest secrets lie waiting. We have journeyed into the blazing heart of the galaxy. Now let us drift all the way back out, past our own quiet neighborhood, past the outer reaches of the disk, and out into the vast, faint, spherical region that surrounds the whole bright wheel of the Milky Way. This is the halo, that great dim sphere we spoke of near the beginning, wrapped all around the disk, far larger than the disk itself, but very thinly scattered with light. And though it is quiet and faint out here, some of the most ancient and most mysterious things in the whole galaxy are to be found in this outer halo. The first are the globular clusters. These are among the loveliest and oldest things in all the Milky Way, and they are well worth resting your mind upon for a moment. A globular cluster is a great ball of stars, a dense, round, glittering swarm of many hundreds of thousands, or even millions of stars, all bound tightly together by gravity into a single beautiful sphere. Picture a vast glittering snowball, but made of stars instead of snowflakes, hanging alone in the dark. Out in the halo of our galaxy, far above and below the flat disk, there drift well over 100 of these great globular clusters, wheeling slowly around the distant center in vast, looping paths. And what makes them so remarkable is their age. The stars within the globular clusters are some of the very oldest stars in the entire galaxy, ancient suns that formed near the very beginning of the Milky Way's long life, many, many billions of years ago. They are like living fossils, these clusters, quiet relics of the galaxy's distant youth, still drifting out there in the halo, still shining, having watched the whole long history of the Milky Way unfold beneath them. But the halo holds a far deeper mystery than the globular clusters, and it is one of the greatest and most honest puzzles in all of modern science. A puzzle we have not yet solved, and it would be wrong of me to pretend otherwise. It is this: when astronomers carefully measured how fast the galaxy is spinning, how quickly the stars out at the edges of the disk are orbiting around the center, they found something that did not make sense. The outer stars were moving far too fast. Given all the visible matter in the galaxy, all the stars, all the gas, all the dust that we can actually see and count, gravity should not have been strong enough to hold those fast-moving outer stars in their orbits. Spinning that quickly, they should have gone flying off into space long ago, like mud flung from a spinning wheel. And yet they do not. They stay held firmly in their orbits, turning calmly around the center, which means there must be far more mass in the galaxy, far more gravity holding it all together than we can see. There must be a great deal of something out there, something heavy, something that pulls with gravity just as ordinary matter does, but something that gives off no light at all, and that we cannot see with any telescope of any kind. We have given this unseen something a name. We call it dark matter. But I must be honest with you, the name is really just a label for our own ignorance. We do not know what dark matter actually is. We know only that it must be there, because of the gravity it exerts, holding the fast-spinning galaxy together, and that there seems to be a great deal of it, far more, in fact, than all the ordinary visible matter of the stars and gas put together. The whole bright galaxy that we can see, all those hundreds of billions of stars, appears to be embedded within a vast, invisible cloud of this dark matter, a great unseen halo of it, wrapped around everything, quietly holding the whole grand structure together with its gravity. What it is made of, no one yet knows. It is one of the deepest and most genuine mysteries in all of science, and people are working, even now, to try to understand it. And I find there is something rather wonderful, and not at all frightening, in that thought. That our home galaxy still holds mysteries this deep, that most of it may be made of something we have not yet even identified, and that there is still so very much left for us to discover. We live inside a puzzle we have only just begun to solve. So let us turn now from the mysterious dark back to something we can see and touch upon the great clouds of gas and dust that drift between the stars. We have spoken a great deal about the stars of the galaxy, but the stars are not the only thing that fills the Milky Way. Between them, drifting through the vast spaces of the disk, there lies something else, something thin and faint and easy to overlook, but enormously important. Between the stars there drifts gas, and there drifts dust. Great clouds and streams and rivers of it spread all throughout the galaxy. And though it is thin and quiet, this drifting material is, in a very real sense, the raw stuff from which everything else is made, and to which everything, in time, returns. The gas is mostly the very lightest and simplest kind of matter there is, the same simple gas from which all the stars themselves are made. And the dust is not dust as we know it here on Earth, not little bits of dirt and lint, but something finer and stranger, a fine haze of tiny grains, like a delicate cosmic soot, scattered thinly through space. In most places, this gas and dust is spread so incredibly thin that it is far emptier than the finest vacuum we could ever create in any laboratory on Earth. But it is spread across such enormous distances that, all added up together, it amounts to a truly vast quantity of material. Enough, in fact, to build a great many new stars. And that is exactly what it does. For as we saw when we spoke of the spiral arms, it is out of these great clouds of gas and dust that new stars are born. Here and there throughout the galaxy, and especially along the crowded spiral arms, these clouds gather and grow dense and cold, and gravity begins to pull them together and squeeze them tighter and tighter, until at their crowded hearts, new stars ignite and begin to shine. The drifting clouds are the nurseries of the galaxy, the wombs from which all the stars are born. Every star you have ever seen, our own sun included, was born long ago out of just such a cloud of gas and dust, gathered together and lit into life. And here is the truly beautiful part, the part that makes the galaxy feel almost like a living, breathing thing. When stars come to the end of their long lives and die, as all of them one day must, they give a great deal of their material back, releasing it, gently or violently, back out into space, back into those same great clouds of gas and dust from which they were born. And that returned material, enriched now with all the new substances the star forged in its heart across its long life, mingles back into the drifting clouds, and, in time, becomes part of the next generation of stars and their worlds. So there is a great, slow, endless cycle turning within the galaxy, quite apart from the turning of the wheel itself. Clouds of gas and dust gather and collapse and give birth to stars. The stars live out their long lives and die, and return their enriched material back to the clouds. And from those enriched clouds, new stars and new worlds are born again, a little richer than before. Round and round it goes, birth out of death and death feeding birth, across billions of years. The galaxy forever recycling its own material, forever building new stars from the remains of the old. It is a slow and stately and rather gentle thing, this great cosmic recycling, quietly turning within our home, and it has been turning for almost the whole long life of the Milky Way. So our galaxy is not a finished and unchanging thing, a fixed and frozen wheel of stars. It is alive with slow change, forever birthing new suns from its drifting clouds, forever gathering back the dust of the old, forever renewing itself, generation after generation of stars, across the vast slow ages. But our galaxy is not alone in the universe either. It has neighbors, other great islands of stars, drifting in the dark nearby. And it is time now to lift our eyes beyond the Milky Way itself and take a gentle look at the wider family of galaxies to which our home belongs. For all its vastness, 100,000 light-years wide, holding hundreds of billions of stars, our Milky Way is not the whole of the universe. It is not even alone. It is just one galaxy among a truly staggering number of others, scattered all throughout the depths of space, as far as our greatest telescopes can see. The number of galaxies in the observable universe is thought to run into the hundreds of billions or more, which means there may be roughly as many galaxies out there in the cosmos as there are stars in our own Milky Way. Let that gentle thought wash over you for a moment, that our entire galaxy, our vast home of hundreds of billions of suns, is itself but a single glowing island, one among 100 billion other islands, adrift in an ocean of dark so wide we can scarcely imagine its far shore. It is worth pausing on that thought, softly, for it may be very nearly the largest true thing you will thus ever hold in your mind. If there are something like 100 billion galaxies out there, and each one holds on average something like 100 billion stars of its own, then the total number of stars in all the universe is 100 billion times 100 billion, a number so unthinkably vast that it has almost no meaning left in it at all. It is often said, and it turns out to be very nearly true, that there are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on every beach and in every desert on the whole of the earth. Every grain of sand on every shore, in every desert, in all the world, and still there are more stars than that. And around a great many of those countless stars, there will be worlds of their own, turning quietly in the dark, just as our own small world turns around our own sun. We shall almost certainly never visit them, nor ever know what lies beneath their distant skies. But they are out there, in their unimaginable multitudes, scattered through the vast and silent dark. And our whole Milky Way, our entire home, with all its hundreds of billions of suns, is but one small glowing island among them all. But the Milky Way does not drift entirely alone out there. Like most galaxies, it belongs to a small gathering, a little cluster of galaxies that travel through space together, bound to one another by gravity. Astronomers call our own little gathering the local group. It contains around 100 known galaxies in all, most of them small and faint, but 2 of them are large, and they are the 2 great members of the group, the 2 heavyweights around which all the rest are gathered. One of those 2 is our own Milky Way, and the other is a great spiral galaxy, rather similar to our own, called Andromeda. Circling close around our Milky Way, there are also several smaller companion galaxies, little satellite galaxies, held captive by our galaxy's gravity, orbiting around it much as moons orbit a planet. The 2 most famous of these are a pair of smallish cloudy galaxies that can be seen with the naked eye from the southern half of the world, looking like 2 soft detached patches of the Milky Way floating in the southern sky. For a long time, sailors and travelers in the southern seas used them to help find their way. They are 2 of our galaxy's small companions, drifting along beside us through space, held close by our gravity. But it is Andromeda, that other great spiral, that I would most like you to hold in your mind tonight. Andromeda is the nearest large galaxy to our own, and it is a grand spiral, much like the Milky Way, a great turning wheel of hundreds of billions of stars, our nearest major neighbor in all the cosmos. And yet, even this, our closest great neighbor, lies at a distance almost impossible to hold in the mind. Andromeda lies about 2.5 million light-years away from us, which means that the light by which we see it tonight set out from Andromeda about 2.5 million years ago, and has been crossing the dark ever since, only now arriving at our eyes. When you look at Andromeda, and on a very dark, clear night, from a truly dark place, you can just make it out with your own naked eyes as the faintest, softest smudge of light. You are seeing further into the depths of space and further back into the past than with almost anything else you can see without a telescope. You are looking at light that began its journey before there were any human beings at all upon the earth. It is, quite possibly, the most distant thing your unaided eye will ever behold. Another whole galaxy, another island of hundreds of billions of suns. its ancient light only now reaching you across 2.5 million years of empty dark. And here is a gentle and rather wonderful thing about Andromeda. It is coming toward us. Slowly, across the vast gulf between us, the Milky Way and Andromeda are drifting closer together, drawn by the pull of each other's gravity. For a long time, astronomers felt quite sure that, far in the future, some 4 or 5 billion years from now, the two great galaxies would meet and slowly, gracefully, over hundreds of millions of years, merge together into a single greater one. More careful measurements in recent years, though, have made even this look a little less certain than it once seemed. It now appears to be something more like an even chance, spread across the next great many billions of years, rather than the settled certainty it was once believed to be. But if the two galaxies do one day meet, I want to set your mind fully at ease about what that would mean, for it sounds far more dramatic than it truly is. When two galaxies come together in this way, the stars themselves almost never collide, for you will remember how vast the empty spaces between stars really are. The two galaxies simply pass through and around one another, their stars sliding gently past each other across those enormous distances, drawn slowly by gravity into a single new, larger galaxy over a great span of time. No world is likely to be struck. No star is likely to crash. It is less a collision than a slow and stately merging, a gentle joining of two great wheels into one. And it lies so unimaginably far in the future, billions of years from now, that it need not trouble you in the slightest tonight. By then, our own sun will be nearing the end of its own long life. It is simply another of the slow, grand, patient motions of the heavens, unfolding across spans of time so vast that they are almost peaceful to contemplate. Two great islands of stars, drifting slowly toward a distant embrace. So our Milky Way has its neighbors, and its little family, and its slow and distant dance with Andromeda. But how did all of this come to be? How did our galaxy itself first form, and how old is it? Let us drift, gently, into the deep past, and tell the story of how our home came to be. How old is the Milky Way, and how did it come to be the great spiral wheel it is today? These are questions we can only answer in soft outlines, for it all happened unimaginably long ago, and the evidence is faint and hard-won. But the broad story is a beautiful one, and worth telling gently as we near the end of our journey. Our galaxy is very, very old. It is nearly as old as the universe itself. The universe, as best we can tell, began some 13.5 billion years ago or more, in the great event we call the Big Bang, the moment from which all of space and time and matter unfolded, and the Milky Way began to form not very long after that, in the grand scheme of things. Its oldest stars, the ancient suns out in the globular clusters of the halo, are very nearly as old as the universe itself, having formed in the deep early ages of the cosmos, well over 13 billion years ago. So our galaxy is not far short of as old as everything. It is an ancient, ancient thing, and it has been turning in the dark for almost the whole long history of time. But it did not begin as the grand and orderly spiral we see today. In the early universe, there were no great galaxies yet, only vast clouds of that simple primordial gas, and smaller clumps and gatherings of the earliest stars. And over the long ages, these smaller pieces were drawn together by gravity and merged and gathered, building up larger and larger structures. Our Milky Way grew over billions of years in just this way, not all at once but gradually, by gathering in and swallowing up many smaller galaxies and clusters of stars, one after another, merging them into itself, growing steadily larger and grander as it went. In a very real sense, our galaxy is built from the remains of many smaller galaxies that came before it, drawn in and woven together across the ages into the single great spiral we belong to now. Even today, astronomers can find the faint traces of some of these ancient meals, long, ghostly streams of old stars, strung out across the halo, the scattered remnants of smaller galaxies that our Milky Way drew in and tore apart and absorbed long ages ago. Our galaxy has grown across billions of years by gently gathering others into itself. And slowly, as all this material gathered and settled and began to spin, it flattened out, for a great spinning cloud, as it draws together, naturally flattens into a disk, in just the way we saw stars and their planets form from spinning disks of their own. The gathering galaxy spun and flattened and settled into that great thin plate we now call the disk, and within it, over the ages, the graceful spiral arms took shape, and generation after generation of new stars was born. And so, across billions upon billions of years, out of the merging of many small and humble beginnings, our grand spiral galaxy slowly came to be, the great turning wheel of stars that we look up at and live within tonight. It has been shining and turning and growing and giving birth to stars for almost the entire age of the universe, and our own sun and our own small world are really rather recent arrivals, born out of the galaxy's drifting clouds only about 4.5 billion years ago, when the Milky Way was already ancient, already vast, already long-turning. We are the newcomers here, latecomers to a very old and grand and patient place. And when we turn our greatest telescopes out toward the deepest reaches of space, we can, in a quiet way, watch this whole long story unfolding all over again. For the light from the most distant galaxies has taken so many billions of years to cross the emptiness and reach us that we do not see those galaxies as they are now, but as they were long, long ago in the youth of the universe. We see young galaxies still gathering themselves together, still merging and settling and taking shape, exactly as our own Milky Way must once have done in its own distant beginning. To gaze far out into space then is always also to gaze far back into time. And so, without ever once leaving our own small and quiet corner, we are able to look upon the distant past of galaxies, much like our own, and to piece together, from all those faint and far-off glimpses, the long story of how a galaxy such as ours is born and grows and comes to be. Our own beginnings are hidden from us, buried in the deep past, but we can read them, softly, written in the ancient light of others. So the Milky Way is nearly as old as time, born in the early ages of the universe, grown across billions of years by gathering countless smaller pieces into itself, forever spinning, forever birthing new stars. And we, upon our little world, are a very late and very small chapter in its immense and ongoing story, which brings us gently home again, to ourselves and to our own quiet place upon the great wheel. Let us gather up all that we have wandered through tonight and rest with it as we come to the end. And so we come softly to the end of our journey through our home, Let us gather it all together now, gently, and hold the whole of it in our minds for one quiet moment before we let it go and drift away into sleep. We began by looking up at that soft, pale river of light arching across the night sky, and we came to understand what it truly is. Not a cloud, not spilled milk, but the blended glow of countless distant stars, the rest of our own galaxy, seen edge on from the inside. We learned that a galaxy is a vast island of stars held together by gravity, and that our own, the Milky Way, holds somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion of them, of which our mighty sun is but one ordinary member. We saw the shape of our home, a great flat disk, 100,000 light-years wide, threaded through with grand and glowing spiral arms, a swollen bulge of old stars gathered at its center, crossed by a bar, and a vast dim halo wrapped around it all. We found our own place within it, out in the quiet suburbs, some 26,000 light-years from the center, riding along in a small stream of stars. We felt the great wheel turning, carrying us silently around the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour, so slowly and so grandly that a single turn swallows up the whole age of the dinosaurs and everything since. We drifted through the star-birthing spiral arms and into the blazing heart of the galaxy, where a great silent black hole of 4 million suns sits at the very center, around which all things turn. We ventured out into the mysterious halo, among the ancient globular clusters, and touched upon the deep unsolved puzzle of the dark matter that seems to cradle the whole galaxy in its unseen embrace. We watched the slow, endless recycling of gas and dust into stars and back again, and we lifted our eyes beyond our own galaxy to our neighbors and our little local group, and to great Andromeda, drifting slowly toward us across 2.5 million light-years of dark. And we told, in soft outline, the story of how our galaxy came to be, ancient almost beyond measure, grown across billions of years by gathering smaller pieces into itself, forever turning, forever giving birth to new suns. And here is the thought I would most like to leave with you as you drift off towards sleep. All of this, the whole vast turning wheel, the hundreds of billions of stars, the glowing arms and the blazing heart, and the dim mysterious halo, the ancient clusters and the drifting clouds and the slow dance with Andromeda, all of it is your home. You do not merely live beneath the Milky Way, you live within it. You are a part of it, as much as any star. The atoms of your body were forged in its stars and gathered from its drifting clouds. And at this very moment, as you lie here so perfectly still and calm, you are riding upon that great wheel, being carried in its vast slow turn, gliding through the quiet dark at an unimaginable speed, in perfect and unfelt peace, exactly as you have been every moment of your whole life, and every moment of every life that ever was. There is nothing you need to do about any of it. The great wheel turns without any help from you. It has been turning for over 13 billion years, patiently, grandly, and it will turn on for billions more, long after this night is forgotten, carrying its countless stars and its drifting clouds, and its one small warm world with you resting upon it, gently around and around through the dark. You need only lie still and let it carry you. Let your breathing slow. Let your body grow heavy and warm, and feel, if you can, just how small and safe and held you are, one gentle soul, upon one small world, adrift in the quiet suburbs of one great turning galaxy, beneath that soft and ancient river of light, Rest now. The night is long, and the great wheel is turning, and you are carried safely upon it, and you have nowhere at all that you need to be. Sleep gently, traveler upon the Milky Way, and may your dreams be as soft and as deep and as full of quiet light as the great slow galaxy turning all around you in the dark. Good night.